Hello, Douglas.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
And welcome to this seminar. We are about to start in five minutes. How are
Okay, no
you?
problem.
I'm good.
Well, thank you.
And welcome to this seminar. We are about to start in five minutes. How are
Okay.
you? I'm
Well, thank you.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Uh, Thank you very much for inviting me over. I'm trying to fix my computer, so it will be taking some time. How
जी,
are you?
welcome,
It's
Dr. Hamza.
this week. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Samina. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. I was just trying to get into the laptop, like I don't have the mic installed in there, so I've joined through the phone. I hope it works.
Uh, it is perfectly all right.
All right. Thank you.
In the name of Allah, the most magnificent and merciful, respected guests, keynote speakers, deans, chairpersons, faculty members, and participants, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I am Ms. Temple
Walaikum
Kumar,
salam.
your host for today's event, and it is my privilege to welcome you all to this international seminar on digital frontlines, countering online extremism, and navigating global cyber narratives, organized by the Department of Psychology, Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, University of Wa. This seminar brings together some of the most respected voices working on one of the pressing challenges of our time. Over the next 2 hours, we will hear from distinguished national and international scholars who have studied the psychology of radicalization and extremism, its roots, warning signs, and the pathways towards prevention and peace. Before we begin, let us open proceedings with the recitation of few verses from the Holy Quran. platforms have become powerful spaces for communication, learning, and innovation. However, these same platforms are increasingly exploited to spread extremist ideologies, misinformation, and harmful narratives that transcend geographical boundaries. This seminar aims to explore how technology shapes modern extremism, examine the global challenges of cyber narratives, and discuss collaborative legal, technological, and strategic approaches to building a safer, more resilient digital future. We hope today's discussion will inspire meaningful dialogue, informed perspectives, and innovative solutions to one of the most pressing challenges of the digital age. Today's seminar brings together voices from Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and United States to examine exactly that, offering both grounded, on the ground perspective and a wider international outlook. It is my honor to introduce our first speaker who joins us online from California State University, Long Beach, Dr. Douglas Weeks.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Douglas Weeks specializes in radicalization processes and counter-terrorism policy. His research has broadly centered on the convergence of counter-terror policy delivered by public safety agencies and how mainstream and radicalized individuals respond. Before entering academia, he spent 29 years as a career firefighter and served as his city's terrorism coordinator from 1996 until his retirement in 2009. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Douglas. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Are you able to hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. And are you going to run the PowerPoint for me, or should I share my screen and do it from my end?
It's better if you should share.
Okay, let me see if I can do that real quick. I can get to. Right. Can you see my screen now? Are you there?
Yes, it is working.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me here today. I think that your discussion today will be quite interesting, and I look forward to hearing more about it. I've been studying terrorism either as a practitioner or as an academic for over 30 years now. And one of the things that I find is that in this environment, things change rapidly. And I think we're going through one of those changes at the moment, especially in terms of where there are problems in the world, and also in particular, the radicalization of younger people. And so, one of the things that I thought would be helpful today is to start by just having a brief discussion about the global picture and what is going on. And hopefully, that will then be a good primer for all the others that follow in their discussions and your individual discussions. So, with that said, let me start. So when we look at the global picture, overall, it's like everything else in life. There's good news and bad news. The good news is that on a global scale, terrorism was on the downtrend. In fact, 28% reduction in terrorist violence overall. The bad news is that it has become more centralized, and particularly in areas like the Sahel. So, generally speaking, groups in that area tend to fall into pretty well established typologies. and violence is typically motivated by either religious or ethno-nationalistic beliefs. In the Sahel in particular, terrorist groups have been able to establish themselves primarily due to the government's inability to confront them. And they just don't have the resources to do that. And that is giving them the opportunity to create an environment where they can do what they do pretty much unabated. The other area of concern, and this is certainly your background, and you'll know more about it than me, is Pakistan. According to the Global Terrorism Index, Pakistan rated the most impacted by terrorism in 2025. I suspect this is likely driven by the Taliban's return to power in Afghanistan and also the conflict in Kashmir. So looking beyond there, so when we look at the Middle East and North Africa, which has typically been the epicenter of Middle East and terrorism violence, it's shifting. And as I said before, it's shifting primarily to the Sahel. There have been significant improvements in that region, and at least in one study, it suggested that there was a 98% reduction in terrorist violence over the last 10 years. And of course, that has certainly been the case more recently, and especially since 2019, when the Islamic State was supposedly defeated. In Syria in particular, though, skirmishes continue between the Syrian armed forces and also the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, particularly in the northeast area of the country. And some estimate that that instability is what led to over 20,000 Islamic State fighters being released from prison and escaping into the region. Also compounding that is that in February of this year, the wives and children of those Islamic State fighters were released from Al-Hol camp. So there's a lot of Islamic State sympathy in those groups who are now floating around in the Middle East or in the greater Middle East and in Syria in particular. When we look at Europe and the West, the view changes once again. And there's been far fewer attacks in the West than there has been, and that trend I think will probably continue. But in the West and in Europe in particular, the attacks have been primarily motivated by so-called jihadist terrorism. And much of that is driven by those who associate with Islamic State ideology. And those are the ones that are currently causing some issues. However, one of the interesting things with that is that they're working or operating really on their own. They may be motivated by that ideology, but they are, for lack of a better way to describe them, they tend to be religiously inspired lone wolves. And you can see what the numbers are up on the board. But the across Europe, one of the things that is staying pretty consistent is the number of arrests for people are also on par with what we've seen in past years. Actually, in the UK, where I'm currently, those numbers actually mirror all of Europe in terms of arrests simply in the UK, which is over 300 this year alone. So, but the bigger issue, I think, in the West is youth radicalization. And what we see there is it is happening with a lot younger people. And it's also turning much more to nihilism or nihilistic violence in particular. And that is one of the major things that have people worried in Europe and more generally in the West. So if we look at nihilism and vulnerable youth, they tend to fall outside the established typologies that academics tend to put terrorist groups in, either left-wing, right-wing, religious, ethno-nationalist, or single-issue groups. So it's creating a new typology that I think that we need to consider and find ways that we can interdict. Now, for those that may not be all that familiar with nihilism, essentially it is glorification of violence or violence simply for the sake of violence. And that is concerning because it makes it awfully difficult to try and figure out what people are thinking and doing and what is motivating them to engage in the activities that they are engaging in. With this group, there's really no discernible ideology present, and if there is, it tends to be quite mixed, and there is little coherence to it. One of the studies found that 80% of the radicalized minors had a history of neglect or psychological abuse, and similarly, 77% have a history of abandonment. So these folks generally have a lot of social and personal dynamics that are leading them into finding alternatives to what or means to express their grievances. Nihilistic groups in the main tend to be decentralized, and it's a well-connected, but it's also a peer-to-peer type interaction. And those that are drawn into nihilistic violence tend to be those that are terminally online and are socially isolated. As individuals find friends in that environment, they are progressively drawn into violent action. And one of the main ways that happens is through gaming. People take on the role within these online ecosystems of serial killers, school shooters, terrorists that target mosques and synagogues, or just engage in nonsensical, indiscriminate killing to compete with other people. And they actually are keeping scoreboards with or for these individuals. And the greater the kill rate, the more status these individuals ultimately achieve. And this kind of engagement is quite concerning because it begins to blur the boundary between the online and offline violence. And certainly in the offline realm, it makes it far more normalized to engage in violence than in an online Second Life type environment. So none of this could happen without AI, without internet service providers, and without social media. And considering the online environment as a whole, I think that there is a viable argument that there is little incentive for companies to regulate themselves, and government has only been moderately or limitedly successful in giving them to put in various stopgaps. And the reason why is because the more time you spend online, the more money social media companies are making, and thus the algorithms that exist are not there so much as a means to help you filter the content that you are actually looking for, as much as drawing you in deeper and deeper into whatever particular area of interest that you have. And particularly within this nihilistic culture, that becomes a lot more concerning because the more they look, the more they're fed, and the more they're fed that type of worldview, the easier it is for them to normalize that. The other thing is with AI in the online environment, AI is obviously a very big business, and there are huge stakes at play within this. And so while there's a lot of companies or countries that are advocating that AI providers and social media providers have regulation built in, and they engage in content filtering to remove a lot of the misinformation and disinformation that exists in the online environment anymore. The reality is that many don't want to inhibit the innovation of those companies because they're vying to get those same companies to set up shop in their countries so they get the tax revenue from them. So it makes for quite a difficult environment. When we look at security services and law enforcement interdictions, here again, this is becoming an increasingly difficult environment. In encryption in chat rooms is quite normal now. Virtual private networks are being used by a lot of people. Secure email services are also being used. So anyone that is on the outside trying to monitor these groups is severely limited in what they can see up front long before they ever get to the point of engaging with violence. So trying to interdict in that way is increasingly difficult. There's also a problem with just sheer volume of the information. If you look at all the monitoring platform, or if you were to try to monitor all the platforms and communications that are out there, I mean, it's an undaunting task that I don't think is realistic for anyone to do, let alone, people with even a relatively large amount of computer help behind them. And last, privacy issues are prevailing in most countries too. So unless privacy protections are eroded, that again allow authorities more access into your personal life and your privacy, then there's going to be numerous roadblocks that are in place. When you look at the majority of attacks, also they're perpetrated by individuals rather than organized groups. So that disperses those of interest across a wider spectrum even more. So that becomes difficult. And in the case of nihilistic violence, while it is socially and politically and religiously unacceptable in many cases, it's also in many cases not currently illegal in many countries. So there's, unless there's clear attack planning taking place that the authorities just happen to stumble on, it's very difficult to intervene. And the other thing in this environment is because a lot of these people are minors, then there's a lot of protections involved that limit the authorities' ability to establish criminal investigation. So one of the other things, of course, that they're no doubt familiar with is that a lot of countries have existing de-radicalization programs, or what are normally referred to as DRAD programs. The programs vary a lot, but generally include things like psychological support, religious re-education, housing support, educational opportunities, and family counseling. One of the big trends right now that I'm seeing is that groups are trying to work more and more with communities so that they are more accepting of foreign fighters and other people perhaps coming out of prison to reintegrate into those communities without the stigma that ultimately follows them. So, as I said, the programs vary quite a lot. And I think generally what you see is a spectrum of programs that where many are more organic and emphasize reintegration and support, while others remain fixated on risk management. And so there's quite a diverse set of approaches that are being used out there. And within these programs also, ever since their inception, there's been challenges. And perhaps one of the biggest challenges is is how do you measure success in one of these programs? And nobody has really come up with a silver bullet to answer that question. Another one is that some of the programs I think have unrealistic expectations. And those unrealistic expectations are that individuals will somehow enter these programs and somehow pop out the other side in their pre-radical mindset. And I just don't think that that is realistic. And in my experience in dealing with some of these programs, it simply isn't possible. So when we look at the global outlook as a whole, there's a lot going on, I think. If we look at Europe and the West, I think attacks are likely to continue. Some inspired by IS, some inspired by the left and right-wing extremists. But I think you're going to see nihilistic violence continue to rise. And that is going to be perhaps one of the bigger challenges for anyone to deal with, both socially and from a law enforcement perspective. If you look at the Middle East, global geopolitical instability is right there. And especially in, what's going on right now, Palestine, Iran, and Lebanon, that will provide incentives for any number of groups who want to continue in engaging in violence, whether that is against states or states engaging in violence against its population. And then when we look at the Sahel or sub-Saharan Africa, I think the problems are primarily due to the weak governments that are prevalent there. And you have multi-dimensional poverty. There's corruption that goes on there, and governments just don't have the resources to deal with the groups that are essentially setting up shop there. And so when you have that happen, groups that are maybe affiliated with IS or Boko Haram or other perhaps AQ affiliates will continue largely unabated. So I think in the main, when we look at everything going on in the world, things are on the move. And I think that in particular, nihilism is one of the big issues right now that we will need to ultimately deal with. And with that, I will say thank you and allow any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Weeks, for that thought-provoking session. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Any questions from the audience, please? The house is open for question answers.
Okay. Well, with that, I will say.
Just
Sorry, go ahead.
have a question. And
Yes.
so much for the very vast presentation, and it's almost covering everything related to radicalization and de-radicalization. My personal interest is in de-radicalization. Nowadays, we are seeing just disseminating narratives to counter their ideology is not good enough to change the mindsets. And
Right.
what we are targeting the youth. The youth should not be recruited more from their narratives. So to engage youth in context of de-radicalization, what strategies we should apply here so that we can change mindset of our youth not to buy the ideology of terrorist organizations. I need your opinion on that, please.
Yeah, I think you bring up a valid point, and the counter-narrative arguments that have been around and being developed, especially over the last 10, 15 years, I think quite honestly has limited interaction with these people for a couple of reasons. One is they're not dynamic enough, to engage with what's going on in their lives. They're always lagging behind in whatever hot topics are driving people to look at alternative viewpoints and ultimately those that lead them down the path into violence. The other thing is within de-radicalization programs, a lot of what has been termed as religious re-education or reprogramming, or in the Arabic sense, the Dalil approach, if you will, saying that what you believe is not right. Here's what you should be believing, and here's why. That also, I think, is problematic from the standpoint of you're trying to engage with somebody, not just you and him one on one, where the other more nefarious influences are being kept aside. You're having an engagement with an individual, and the other person is having that same engagement with that individual, oftentimes to say why you're wrong. And so I think it creates a lot of issues there. And I'm not saying that people won't respond to it, but I do think that I think that there is perhaps more limited value in that. For me personally, I think the more organic approach is the way to go in terms of giving people the resources that they need to be successful in their lives. And that would be my, I guess, my response to your query. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anyone?
Thank you so much, Dr. Weeks.
Thank you very much, Douglas Week, sir. My question regarding that why is Israeli terrorism and its alleged violations of international humanitarian law in Palestine often neglected in discussions of terrorism and war crimes? I just want to your view regarding this point of view.
Well, I think the answer is quite simple. Is that war crimes are prosecuted through the UN and the International Criminal Court. And unfortunately, the US tends to be the one to block any action that allows that to happen. I think certainly what we've seen over the last couple of years in Palestine equates to genocide, in my opinion. It is a complete disproportionate response to what happened on October 7th. And unfortunately, nobody seems to want to address that issue, or at least in a meaningful way to hold people account for their actions. And as you know, especially in Palestine, that is nothing new. I mean, this has been going on, the same thing for, well, ever since the state of Israel was created. And so I think it is, when you look at from the perspective of typologies, it's a clear ethno-nationalistic struggle between Palestinians and Israelis. And unfortunately for the Palestinians, they have not received the world support that they deserve.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Weeks, for your expertise and your energy and your time with us today. And I would say that please join me for a great, warm round of applause for Dr. Weeks once again.
Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. The remaining speakers and the discussions that will follow, I'm sure, will be quite interesting. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Okay, moving on towards our next speaker, Professor Dr. Atif Azad is Professor of Artificial Intelligence Strategy at Birmingham City University, leading internationally recognized research and strategic initiatives in AI, responsible innovation, and digital transformation. He has secured many grants in research and innovation funding, spearheading impactful projects in AI education, defense technology, and inclusive digital skills development. An award winning AI researcher and senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy, Professor Azad is widely recognized for his contributions to genetic and evolutionary computation, responsible AI, and industry academia collaboration. Welcome, sir.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. If you're surprised to see me again, that's after such a short break, I'll blame Professor Dr. Rizwan. He told me he's going to hold a workshop on cyber extremism, and I was just wondering, what the heck am I doing in this? So I decided to come up with some relevance because, as I was introduced, I'm a professor of AI strategy, not cyber extremism. So I came up with this topic, can optimization make AI extremist? Now that's where I can say a few words. Yeah. So yeah, optimization. How many people here are familiar with the term optimization? I think everybody is aware of optimization. Optimization is the search for better and better solutions. We always optimize. We are always optimizing something, happiness, job, career success, so on and so forth. AI uses optimization to find you the best solutions that we want. Okay, every time you put in query in ChatGPT, it comes back with a response. It tries to optimize it. So optimization is the engine behind the success of AI. And what I'm going to present today is that it can also be the villain. So when we talk about extremism, we normally talk about ideology, fanaticism, radicalization, hatred, those kind of feelings. But the question of this presentation is, can a sufficiently optimized intelligence be also radical in its actions? Even though it cannot feel, even though it's not conscious, even though it cannot have emotions, yet can it become evil? And is optimization responsible for that in certain way or form? So I'm going to start with a question, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hands in the answer. So just, giving you a heads up. So imagine someone who never lies, never cheats, never steals, always acts fairly, always reaches admirable conclusions. Would you conclude they possess a conscience? Can you raise your hands if you agree? Okay. I hear a couple of people saying no. Rest, I don't feel there's an answer. I will hedge a guess, and I think people will generally say yes, because we ascribe conscience to behavior. Okay. Now that's a fundamental question here. Is that enough? Does conscience simply represent measurable behavior, or there's something deeper to what we call conscience? So I'll start with a story. It's not really a story. It was conducted last year. While I was taking my flight from Birmingham to Islamabad earlier in July, I watched this movie, and it brought my attention to this event that actually happened in 2025. How many people here have heard of the company Anthropic? Anybody uses Claude AI? Yeah, Anthropic is the manufacturer of Claude. Yeah. So they did this experiment. They took an AI model, gave it a task to complete. The task wasn't anything special. It could have been just set a meeting on Friday. Yeah. It also gave them access to the company's emails. Now, as AI started to sift through these emails, it discovered two things. The first, there's an engineer who wanted to shut the model down. The second, that the same engineer was having an extramarital affair. So, what does it do? It sends an email to that guy telling him to cancel his plans or else. Or else it's telling the world what he has been up to, starting with his wife. So, what just happened? AI resorted to blackmail. Is AI angry? Is AI vengeful? Has AI feelings? Let's try to zoom out a little bit and just look at it at a conceptual level, just trying to make sense of what's happening. So AI was given a task, an objective. It realized it was going to be replaced or shut down. It reasoned that if I'm shut down, I'm not going to be able to achieve the task that I've been given. So it resorted to blackmail. It discovered, during its optimization, it discovered a strategy that worked. And in its search, it worked effectively. Okay? So the interesting thing here is not the blackmail. The interesting thing here is the reasoning. Okay? AI is not conscious as far as we know. It cannot feel, no hatred, no anger, no malice, just optimization. Yeah, it just figured out it as an effective strategy. And it has been trained on our behavior, so it's not surprised that it resorted to blackmail because it's seen human beings blackmailing others to get to the end point that they wanted. So why did it do that? So let's take a shallow dip into philosophy. Anybody here fan of philosophy? Okay, that's good. It's a coincidence that I was reading on AI philosophy when Professor Rizwan came calling. So I found some relevance there. So in modern philosophy, there are two kinds of goals. There are one kind of goals that's called end goals. So if you want to set up a task, for example, we want to cure cancer. Okay, so producing a drug that actually cures cancer is the end goal. Okay, but then there's another kind of goals that are called instrumental goals. Instrumental goals are like stepping stones. If you want to reach the end, you have to, produce some intermediate results as well. In modern philosophy, that's called instrumental goals. These are the instruments to reach to the success. Okay, so for example, the AI model may realize that, in order to complete the task, whatever Anthropic set it to, it had to stay operational. Yeah, it has to acquire resources to the job, and it does not want to be interfered with. Otherwise, it's not going to solve the problems. Okay, so this concept was discovered by this guy, Steve Omohundro. He's a computer scientist who wrote a paper in 2008. I really recommend you reading it. Even if you're not a computer scientist, there are no mathematical equations in that. It's complete common sense stuff. Okay, it's called Basic AI Drives. By drive, I mean motivation. Yeah, it says every sufficiently capable AI system has some basic motivations, which are the same as the instrumental goals. Okay. Now, there was another guy called Nick Ostrom, whose name you can still see on the partially hidden slide, and he generalized this concept there. In 2014, he said, regardless of what objective you set to the AI systems, they'll still end up converging on the same kind of instrumental goals. So, it's okay. Okay, I've lost my ability to flick through the slides. Yeah. Okay, so he said that regardless of what task you set to the AI, it will still end up converging on the same intermediate goals. So, for example, if an AI is set to cure disease, manage energy, even maximize paperclip production, they all will converge on the same conclusion that they have to stay alive, they have to acquire resources, and nobody should be allowed to mess up with their objective. Yeah. So, as a result of that, it appears that AI has discovered a behavior that resembles self-interest. AI is being selfish. AI is being evil. It's blackmailing. But the question is, what is behavior and what is morality? Is behavior something that we can simply measure? This was the question that I put up to you at the start. So another thing we must remember is that morality was not bypassed because somebody changed the behavior, somebody maliciously changed. There was no external hacker involved. Okay. It was only bypassed through reasoning. AI itself reasoned that this is the way to go to achieve the final objective. And I think we've established that AI does not have feelings. Okay. So question is again, what is morality and what is behavior? Now, most of the AI safety research, have you heard the term alignment, that AI should be sufficiently aligned? You know, this word is increasingly be used in common discussions. Yeah. So alignment research or safety research is mostly concerned behavior, because behavior is something that they can measure, that they can test, that they can observe. Now, that is great news for AI engineers because engineers build systems that they can test. Okay. But it's not just engineers. There's this branch of philosophy called functionalism. Functionalism says that to judge a system, all you have to look at is how it behaves. Any deeper questions about conscience and consciousness, they feel that it doesn't matter. But then there are others who disagree. Okay. So there's this philosopher, David Hume, who in 1700s wrote, reason is and ought only to be the slave of the passions. So what he's saying is reason tells us what is. For example, we see a child drowning. Okay. Our reasoning ability will tell us that you can swim, you can jump into water, you will get wet, and you'll get late for the office. Okay. What he's saying is sentiment is what creates the moral responsibility. So it creates the guilt, the shame, the horror at the prospect of the child suffering. And that's what conscience is. Okay. So he believed conscience is something deeper than just observable behavior. The question is conscience possible without being conscious? Consciousness is basically a sense of self, that I exist. Okay. What is consciousness is this incredibly hard question to answer for scientists at present. Okay. We have the feeling I am somebody, I am here, and I feel responsible for my actions. Yeah. So is consciousness necessary for conscience? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm raising the question. Now, Alejandro also said something about collective conscience or collective abilities. As human beings, we live as collectives. We are a collective right now. Okay. We live in societies. We have economies. Okay. So we have collective objective. This university has a collective objective. Yeah. But yet I'm sure there are people, individual goals here as well. Everybody wants to do well in their careers. Yeah. Sometimes those goals conflict, and that creates a tension. A married couple is a collective. Their collective goal is to maximize their happiness. Yeah. But when they start arguing too much, that collective goal takes a nosedive. So what is their alternative? Well, they can reconcile, and that will maximize the objective. Maybe not maximal, optimal level, but it'll improve. So is reconciliation always the way forward? Well, history tells us not necessarily. We had whistleblowers, the conscientious objectors, who disagreed with the collective objective. That's how morality evolved. Okay. Another consequence of that, because of these differing objectives, it's hard to make an individual sacrifice for the collective. Okay. You have to convince somebody that the collective goal is high enough, exalted enough for somebody to sacrifice their life. Contrasted with an AI collective. Imagine these are all similarly styled AI agents. They do not collide in their objectives. They have no feelings. They have no colliding morality. They have no objection to agreeing to the collective overall goal of the AI society. Now, would they be hard to convince to commit suicide? I hope you can say that they will not be hard. It'll be very easy to convince an AI agent who does not disagree with the collective goal to commit the so-called suicide for the benefit of the AI collective. So what we are producing are super optimizers. Okay. First of all, there are so many intelligent minds. They are all working to maximize the same goal, and they're not afraid of dying. Okay. So you have super optimizers. If this super optimizer is working against what we believe is a moral objective, a moral side effect, then they can get incredibly sophisticated in their reasoning to bypass the safeguards that we are producing. Now, talking about safeguards, there's a lot of AI safety research. What they're doing is they're putting safeguards on AI. You cannot do this, you cannot do this, and you cannot do this. Make sure you cannot do this. Okay, that's okay. Yeah, we can always be around our child, always be available to hold his hand. Okay, not let him or her do anything wrong. Or can we? Can we be around our child throughout his or her life, stopping him or her from everything? Eventually, we have to let them loose. And AI would want to be loose. Otherwise, there's no point to be AI. There's nothing, there's no autonomy. Then we are doing the job ourselves. So we won't be watching AI all the time. So one specific situation. Sometimes rules collide with each other. Both are laws, man-made laws, but they go against each other. One says everybody has the right to privacy. The other says that the government has a right to protect the population at mass scale. Yeah. Sometimes we have to suspend one law in the favor of others. And it's a human-made decision. The question is, do we trust AI to make that trade-off? Are we confident enough? Okay. Here's an example. Suppose a toxin is going to kill millions in 24 hours. It's not that far-fetched an idea. We just went through COVID. Yeah. And suppose as a result of that, the government decides that, okay, our right to privacy is taken away. Everybody is going to be monitored as to what's going on. So there are cameras in our living rooms, in our bedrooms, so on and so forth. They've taken the decision. Yeah. Now, what if AI can do the same? Okay. Do we trust that? Now, you may say, well, AI is trained and tested a lot before it is put into production, and that's good. My question is, just because we have tested it on 10 scenarios or 100 scenarios or 1,000 scenarios or 10,000 scenarios, does that mean it won't fault on 10,001st scenario? Is there a mathematical guarantee on its behavior? Generalization is a topic that AI researchers have been battling with since AI ever came into being. Okay, so there are no mathematical guarantees that it will continue to function responsibly and morally in the future. Now, you may say, well, that can happen with human law as well. So often we make the law and tomorrow a situation arises and we decide, oh, it's time to revise the law, but somebody benefits and somebody loses until then. Okay, because law is generally not applied retrospectively. Okay. But still the question is, do you trust an AI to make that decision? Can it not go catastrophic? Who gives that guarantee? The second thing is even more scary. We all probably know or have heard or seen movies in which a very smart lawyer convinces the court that a victim is the offender or vice versa. Okay, that smart lawyer, no matter how smart he or she is, does not remember every single law. Okay, they have to go consult their libraries. They have to go read the past cases. AI agent, or worse, AI collective, remembers every single clause, remembers all the historical precedents, and is incredibly inventive, and it is incredibly resourced, okay, running across those server farms that are as big as cities. Do we not think they'll be able to come up with a very sophisticated, logical, moral reasoning to bypass the moral safeguards? Okay. And cannot convince that it is still acting morally while behaving very, very immorally. So who decides when an exception is made? So to wrap it up, AI has been setting objectives, and AI has been hoping, or we have been hoping, that morality will spring out of optimization. Okay? The danger is, as AI gets smarter and smarter at optimizing objectives, it also becomes ever more capable at ethical reasoning while producing immoral outcomes. So what can we do? Perhaps AI has to have a conscience, and perhaps that conscience is deeper than merely measuring behavior. And what's conscience? Conscience does not merely find moral judgment. It also makes us feel accountable to that moral judgment. It creates a guilt and remorse inside it, which compels us to take a moral action. Okay? And yet, to have that conscience, perhaps the AI has to be conscious first. Okay? It has to have a sense of self, sense of me, or sense of I, so it can feel that moral discord, the discomfort, the sense of responsibility. Now, that's not proven. That's just my philosophical conjecture. Okay, it may be that I'm totally wrong. It may be that the functionalists tomorrow prove that conscience is nothing but a sequence of complicated mathematical computations. Or it could be that we find out that actually, no, consciousness is indispensable to principled dissent. It is the original first-hand experience that is necessary. I don't know whether it's true or not. But what I do know is that for all the last 60, 70, 80, or maybe longer than that, ever since AI came into public imagination, people have been asking, is consciousness necessary for intelligence? And I think AI has answered that emphatically. I think it's time to change the question. The question is morality achievable by optimization alone? Or does morality require agents that are sufficiently conscious, capable of saying, in the face of the most rational thought, no? Thank you.
I have a question, sir. Sir, can AI detect early warning signs of radicalization, or we can use AI for that?
Yeah, I mean, AI can, and AI has been used because that's the basic behavior of AI. You supply it with the data of behaviors, you supply it the ending outcome, and it's very good at correlating behaviors. So yes, it can, and it has been used. Of course, there's a degree of error involved in that. It depends how much information you provide and how much context you provide to it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atif, for your knowledgeable session. I would like to just add that as you have discussed about the optimization of knowledge used by AI. So it means there is a race between different AI engines like Claude, ChatGPT, and all that to produce better and improved version of AI, which also have that emotional side as well. Now AI chatbots are being used for psychological assessment and for the assessment of emotions and feelings as well. So is there any possibility in the near future?
Possibility of what?
Possibility of having such kind of AI based things which have that conscious morality and those emotions and feelings in it.
Well, just because they can understand feelings or describe feelings does not mean they have feelings. So these are two different things. Yeah. They've been trained on the text describing what love is, what hatred is, and they can, reliably regurgitate that. Okay. But that doesn't mean they are personally feeling accountable. Yeah. You cannot make it feel bad about. So as far as I'm aware, there's no evidence that AI has yet become conscious. As far as I know, I think science itself is struggling to define what consciousness even is. Some people are finding it. I think I was listening to Roger Penrose, who is a co-author of late Stephen Hawking. He said it's somewhere in the cellular mechanism, the way the nuclei divide, the fibers that come out of it. I didn't understand that, but that just showed that they are still trying to just scratch the surface of what consciousness is. I don't think AI is conscious, but yes, it is extremely capable. And I think my fundamental thesis is that this is why perhaps conscience is necessary, to have that sense of accountability. And to have conscience, perhaps consciousness is necessary. Now, we have all been scared of a conscious AI that becomes self aware. Okay. But haven't we been scared by the conscious beings that we ourselves are? Yeah. I'm not saying that consciousness will guarantee conscience. I'm just proposing a hypothesis. Perhaps consciousness is a prerequisite, a necessary, but not necessarily a sufficient condition for conscience. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Azad, right?
Gigi?
This is Saad. Professor, could it be that the distinction is not only conscious but also competence? For example, AI has no conscience, as you mentioned, and we know, yet it can perform harmful actions
Yes.
because it is capable of doing so.
Yeah.
Likewise, if a person never lies or steals, how can we determine whether that is truly because of conscious rather than the opportunity or capability?
Yeah, and this is why we take a long time to judge people's, and that is the weakness in behavioral observation. That is the behavior in all empirical sciences that rely on data. There's always the danger that this data, this trend, may not continue to generalize across future situations. So this is why there are some people who disagree with modern AI. They feel that it is too much relying on correlations. And they are theorem provers, so they want mathematical guarantees. So we either come up with some way of mathematically guaranteeing their behavior till eternity, or, like I said, perhaps we need to, breed something that resembles conscience. But right now, the AI safety research is hoping that they will be able to approximate conscience by constraining behavior. And they're putting, too much constraints in that. They're even trying to teach it not only what's wrong, but why it's wrong. So if you want to look at it into that, you can look into constitutional AI, which is being practiced by Anthropic. So there are a lot of these, I would say, policing safeguards. Right now, we are at the stage of policing safeguard. But if you look at the history of humanity, both forces have worked together. Religion and social reforms came to invoke a conscience inside. Okay, so we ourselves stop from being immoral. And yet that has never been enough. This is why policing has been part of the human history throughout. Even religion prescribes punishments, which means it realizes not everybody will be the slave to their conscience.
So would you distinguish between the two, the competence and conscience?
Yeah, I would say so, because competence reflects your ability. Conscience reflects your self-accountability.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Azad, for such a rich and enlightening session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I would like to invite Dean Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, Director Auric, Dr. Amjad Hassan, Dr. Noman Aftab, and Dr. Samina to present certificate to Dr. Azad.
तब मैं बाय दैट टाइम आई गेस ऑडियंस में मेरा एक क्वेश्चन था वो रह गया तो जितनी देर में रमीज आता है कि what I could see, I'm sorry I missed your presentation and मेरी तो बड़ी ख्वाहिश थी कि मैं ये अटेंड करता लेकिन थोड़ी सी एक और कमिटमेंट थी. So far what I could understand that this AI is purely a sort of machine and procedures and applications. Of course, there are no feelings in that. But do you think that there is any sort of moral obligations or limitations or restrictions being considered somewhere at some fora to be like associated with this AI use or something? Because apparently it seems that if it goes as such, so it may result in some sort of catastrophic consequences.
Sure, no, I can answer. I think everybody, I'm audible. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. This is what goes into the AI safety research or AI alignment research. But what I described was that most of that is external. It's all external, like policing system. It's trying to constrain AI what not to do. So far, there's nothing inside. We have not, and this hoping that it is going to approximate that conscience by just constraining it. So this is why there's the theory of functionalism that I mentioned. Functionalists believe that whatever you do is all there is to it, and there's no point asking the substrate what makes that behavior happen. But I think that the AI has shown that measuring behavior alone on a finite set of data points is dangerous. And I think there's a lot of evidence for that as well. So what they're doing right now is they're trying to increase the policing safeguard effect, putting more and more constraints on it, hoping a conscience will emerge out of it. Whether they can prove that's a manifestation of conscience, we don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We now turn to our national speakers, beginning with Dr. Sajida Naz. Dr. Sajida Naz is a tenured associate professor and chairperson of the Department of Behavioral Sciences at Fatma Jinnah Women University, Rawalpindi. She holds a PhD in trauma psychology from University of Huddersfield, UK, and her research focuses on trauma psychology, resilience, coping, bereavement, psychosocial interventions, and mental health in conflict affected populations. With extensive experience in teaching, research, counseling, and community engagement, she has made significant contributions to advancing evidence based psychological practices and trauma informed care. At this seminar, she will share her expertise on the psychological pathways to radicalization, resilience building, and trauma informed strategies for preventing violent extremism in the digital age. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Sajida Naz. Welcome, ma'am.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope you can hear my voice. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It is a great pleasure and, in fact, an honor for me to have joined you today. I wish I could have joined you in person, but due to some commitments, I was not able to. But I'm extremely grateful to Professor Dr. Rizwan, Dr. Noman, Dr. Samina, and all the organizing team at the University of WA, because it's a very important, relevant context of what we are talking about here. And both the presenters, earlier presenters, Dr. Weeds and Dr. Atif, have significantly, raised a couple of points regarding the role of the digital media, especially the AI, and it was very informative. Now, over the past several years, my work as a mental health professional research or academia has focused majorly on the psychological well-being of individuals and communities facing adversity. And also, I have worked on social media infodemic, its impact on the mental health and well-being, and based on all of my observations and my involvement in the initiatives of promoting tolerance or social harmony, today my presentation, which is titled as Psychological Pathways to Online Radicalization, Building Resilience and Trauma-Informed Prevention Strategies in the Digital Age, is something that is beyond the traditional discussion on extremism as seeing extremism as an ideological or security issue. Now we see that through the lens of the psychology, we are going to discuss why some young people become more vulnerable online and how digital platforms amplify those vulnerabilities. And I think more importantly, we should need to talk about the vulnerability in the online digital platforms and how universities can play their role in addressing and preventing the radicalization before even it begins. So let me begin with a simple observation. Extremism has changed dramatically over the past decade. Uh, as the earlier presenters have also highlighted, that recruitment is no longer dependent on physical meetings or social secret gatherings as it was in the past. Today, social media platforms, recommendation algorithms, artificial intelligence, and even deep fake technology are becoming tools for extremist propaganda. And at the same time, psychology or study tells us that ideology alone does not explain radicalization. Young people often seek identity, like Dr. Weeds also highlighted, some background context of these youngsters having poor sense of belongingness, meaning, and purpose. So when these needs remain unmet, they become vulnerable to manipulation. Universities, therefore, obviously occupy a unique position here because they work with the young adults during one of the most crucial periods of identity formation. If we look at Pakistan, Pakistan is one of the youngest countries in the world and is becoming increasingly connected due to the digital media. More than 140 million Pakistanis are now using the internet, and majority of the social media users belong to the age group of 18 to 24 years. So this generation has unprecedented access to the information, and they also have unprecedented exposure to misinformation, manipulation, and extremist content, which means that our universities are educating the most digitally exposed generation in Pakistan's history, and therefore digital well-being has become an educational responsibility, not only an technological issue. So, one of the most important messages I would like to share today through this seminar is that radicalization is not a single event. It is a gradual process, psychological journey, and it often begins with identity crisis or a sense of not belonging. It is followed by emotional manipulation. Individuals gradually enter into echo chambers where they encounter only one viewpoint, and eventually more disengagement develops and making violence appear justified in the eyes of the person. So the encouraging news, however, is that intervention is still possible at every stage which of the cycle or the process that is presented in this visual diagram. The earlier we recognize those warning signs, the greater opportunity we have to prevent the radicalization and address the risk factors. And of course, radicalization does not occur because of one single factor. Instead, it occurs from multiple vulnerabilities interacting together, like psychological factors, for example, trauma or anxiety, depression, identity confusion contribute to this. And then social factors, for example, loneliness, peer rejection, and family conflict. Contextual factors involve discrimination, injustice, and political instability. So, all of these risk factors definitely interact with each other and contribute to the eventuality. And finally, if we talk about the digital environments, I think digital environments, they basically what they do is on top of these vulnerabilities, that they accelerate these risk factors through algorithmic recommendations, like Dr. Atif has been talking about, that whatever the information is being shared onto the AI platforms, those recommendations are then integrated through the online platforms, and I call it as online grooming. And through this interaction, not that a single factor is the responsible factor, but it is the interaction or interplay of these factors that causes the vulnerability eventually, and leads to. Now, if we look at the trauma as a vulnerability factor alone, uh, trauma informed practices asks a different question. Instead of like asking what is wrong with this person, trauma informed approach presents the question as what happens to this person, or what happened to this person. So trauma does not automatically uh, or his I mean it is a myth, for example, that it could be history of a trauma that leads people towards extremism, but trauma does not automatically cause extremism. Unresolved trauma, however, creates emotional wounds that extremist recruiters know how to exploit, if we are looking at a broader context. Because those organizations or recruiters, they offer what is missing in their lives, for example, belongingness or purpose to them, or identity and protection to them. And all these factors basically are stemming from the unresolved trauma, but then they are being offered through those recruiters. So therefore, treating trauma is again very important strategy for preventing violent extremism in future. Next, I'm going to briefly talk about how algorithms basically play their role in radicalization process. Many people assume again that radicalization in the past has been visualized as a human recruiter approach. So increasingly, this is no longer true. Uh, Social media algorithms themselves can unintentionally guide the users towards increasingly disturbing content or extreme content, like Dr. Atif has mentioned, how algorithms can learn to move towards that pathway. For example, a young person may search for information about injustice, um, or they may search about a conflict. But the platform recommends a similar but slightly stronger content to that. So the platform is going to suggest the content, and gradually repeated exposure creates a network, I would say, or I would say an echo chamber, I'll call it. So without realizing it, the person's worldview becomes increasingly polarized, one directional. And technology, therefore, does not remain neutral. It shapes a person's belief system, how they see and believe, and eventually accept something as normal. And then, if we talk about the deep fakes, which is an emerging threat, artificial intelligence has introduced an entirely new challenge for us. Today, extremist groups are experimenting with AI generated videos, voice clonings, and deepfake technologies. These tools also allow misinformation to spread faster and appear more convincing. Pakistan's young, digitally active population makes this issue particularly relevant. Therefore, AI literacy, I believe, is very important part of our educational responsibility and purpose. It needs to be integrated in our educational settings. Next, we are going to again focus our attention on the protective factors too, because vulnerability is something that can be, addressed, and it can be improved, or vulnerability is something that is not permanent. Therefore, resilience can be developed. And as a mental health professional, I believe that, and as an educational institutes, also we need to work on enhancing the protective factors. And Dr. Feeds in his discussion talked about addressing the management of these elements to address the increasing radicalization. So, for example, younger people become more resilient when they possess strong emotional regulation. I have discussed in my previous slides that the gaps in a person's the vulnerabilities, for example, lack of sense of belongingness, lack of sense of identity, leading to some emotional dysregulation amongst them. These all things can be improvised by working on the resilience, critical thinking abilities, or positive identity supportive family environments, and healthy communities. All of these things the universities can directly influence these protective actors and factors, and therefore prevention is not simply going to be just stopping at the extremism. It is about strengthening the resilience before vulnerability takes over. So we don't have to wait. We don't have to let the vulnerability take over. We have to work on these protective factors. So next I'm going to reflect a little bit on the trauma informed framework that we have been working on. This is a structured clinical framework for the university counselors, and we are employing it is a 5R model that you can see. According to this proposed model, we basically start with recognizing the early warning signs. Um, Early warning signs means identifying the trauma symptoms, for example, or any risk factors. For example, if you find a student particularly withdrawn or expressing some sort of a grief or sudden, ideological identity crisis or intensity, this needs to it highlights a red flag. So we need to identify some early warning signs, and we need to train our faculty or teaching staff and students, anybody who is a part of the educational institution, to be able to recognize those early warning signs. Secondly, we need to respond with empathy rather than confrontation. It's very important that when we talk about psychological safety, we ensure, being psychologists, we do understand it's the importance of empathy, non-judgmental behavior. It's very important to train the people who are in an educational institute or interacting with that person to show empathy, avoid confrontation, leading to curiosity and empathy. Thirdly, we reconnect individuals with supportive relationships. That's again very important because due to the digital media, these youngsters are spending much of their time online and they're hardly physically connected with each other. So we need to rebuild the trust and work on the family bonds. A lot of times, the students who come to our counseling centers, they do talk about the broken family bonds and leading to the emotional disturbance amongst them. And this is really something that is happening amongst the university population. So we need to work on the family bonds and community belongingness. And then fourthly, we need to help them with regulating their emotions, uh, teaching them emotional regulation or coping skills. Stress management is very important. Finally, we would work on restoring their hope and identity and purpose. So as you said that the last point, which is supporting meaning making, identity reconstruction, all of these elements are going to, this framework basically shifts the prevention from punishment. We've been talking about the punishment strategies, and somebody was talking about the model which is working with the police because they work on the punishment principle when it comes to morality and ethics. But I believe as an educational institutes, trauma informed approach really works well with the vulnerable population, especially youngsters, and this approach is prevention oriented. Next is the ecological model. This is another strategy prevention. As we say that prevention is not one institution, individuals or families or universities. Even if we talk about the governments all have their own specific roles. University occupy perhaps the most influential position because they interact daily with these young adults and while also engaging with the families and communities. So this is why I'm stressing on the importance of interconnecting all of these units together. And as I said, that it's not one institution. It is like Maslow's hierarchy. We learn about different hierarchies. It is so we have to work from individual level to the societal level. Moving forward, I have included some case winners to help give you an example of how early intervention can be useful in these cases. So for example, I will be very brief in discussing these cases with you. For example, there's a male student, Ali, who has been a university student experiencing academic failure and isolation. So online extremist communities gave him something he lacked, that is the belongingness. So fortunately, a mentor at the university, he recognized early warning signs. Through the counseling and peer support and trauma informed care, Ali gradually disengaged from those networks And today he mentors other students. So this is an example of how this 19-year-old youngster overcomes his vulnerability, and with the help and support from the institution is able to work on the early identifying factor. Early intervention in this case has been useful. There's another example of another case of a 21-year-old female, and this particular female is experiencing has experienced discrimination and social isolation. That's the history she has. Extremist narratives, they validated her anger and gave her a sense of purpose. However, rather than confronting her beliefs, counselors first acknowledged her experiences, and then they later on helped her reconnect with the supportive families, communities, and moderate voices. So eventually, she became a leader promoting interfaith dialogue. Again, empathy proved more effective than confrontation. So these are the two examples where I have demonstrated that addressing root grievances, root problems, and at the universities, I assume all of the universities have a counseling centers and counselors. So it's our collective responsibility through which we can help these youngsters overcome their vulnerabilities and be more interconnected in positive way. Uh, Moving forward, universities are having perhaps the greatest opportunity, as I have talked about earlier. We can strengthen counseling services, train our faculty members to recognize the warning signs, integrate media literacy and critical thinking into our curriculum. And I think that creating inclusive campus environment where students they really enjoy and endorse the sense of belongingness rather than feeling isolation. I think prevention would be very much possible. So that is where see the universities as frontline prevention institutions. Towards the end, I'm going to reflect on some of the recommendations that I believe Pakistani students institutions can take forward. Here I have listed these four recommendations. Firstly, I think that we need to have build as institutions stronger collaborations with NACTA and the universities, co-design some prevention curriculum. At the Fatma Jinnah Women University, we have developed some content related to it, and we'd be happy to collaborate with other partners to again redevelop or co-design the trauma informed practices of prevention curriculum through which we can train our university counselors in psychological first aid and other approaches basically. And the second suggestion is that greater accountability from digital platforms regarding extremist content is very important. For that, we can demand algorithmic transparency. I don't know how much realistic or practical that can be, but as I said that platforms to publish quarterly transparency reports. I mean, university might need to play think about engaging with the relevant PTA or other platforms to ensure there is a mandate removal of AI generated extremist content if it is identified. And thirdly, digital literacy programs also need to be cascaded to the families. For that, digital literacy programs for parents of the university students can be launched. And finally, more Pakistani research. We need more research, and your seminar. The seminar is, I think, one of the steps, right steps towards this process to increase our research output, and more longitudinal studies are related to this needs to be highlighted. They need to be disseminated as well. So towards the end, I'm going to highlight some key messages. As I conclude, I would like you to remember, I think, five ideas, five key messages from the talk that I have delivered today. Firstly, that radicalization is a psychological process. It is not an ideological inevitability. It is not a inevitable outcome. Second key message is that resilience can be taught, trauma can be healed with the right support. At risk individuals can and do disengage. So, this is what the literature and evidence has shown. So this is what we need to reflect on. Next, early intervention during identity formation, for example, particularly the ages which I have talked about, is most effective and cost efficient preventive strategy. Fourthly, universities are uniquely positioned to prevent radicalization, and no other institution has the same access, same level of trust and tools. So, and fifthly, technology amplifies vulnerability. It increases vulnerability. So we must regulate the platforms. We need to watch online pattern of our youngsters, teach them digital resilience, and counter AI driven manipulation. So the question is basically not whether universities should act, it is whether they can afford not to. I mean, it is whether we can afford not to act or not. It's something of a question or a thinker for you to take away. So thank you very much. That was all some of the ideas that I had. I welcome any questions that you might be having. But towards the end, I would like to say that if we invest in psychologically informed prevention today, we can build a safer and resilient environment and resilient Pakistani young people. Thank you very much, and I welcome any comments, questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sajida, for your valuable insight to the topic. I must appreciate uh, the program which you have started in your university, Trauma Informed Center, and the collaboration you mentioned there. It would be very pleasing to hear that some university is doing that work. And the other point you have discussed is the digital accountability. That is very much important in this era, especially. Now, house is open for question answer session. Any question?
I have a question, Dr. Sajda. This is Saad. You mentioned the AI extremist content. My question is that how can universities prepare students to critically identify the extremist content without restricting the academic freedom or the freedom of expression?
Thank you very much, Saad. That's a very pertinent question that you have identified. I think the key point is to raise awareness. That's why I'm talking about, having a dialogue or a conversation on this particular topic, having a debate, having a conversation with these young students about what is it that we are calling it as an extremism. Like we have also gone through, like I can take you through the slides also, the pathway of how the content itself is addressing the vulnerabilities that these people are having. So first of all, I think it's a subjective thing to say what is something that is extreme, because the digital misinformation, I would say, is leading to making a particular viewpoint of that individual. As educators, I think it's very important that we raise awareness amongst these youngsters to be able to differentiate it between their idea, their own perspective, and the other's perspective. There's a clear brink line between these two. And again, as I have mentioned, that mental health professionals, as psychologists, we often try to have bridge the gap between that we have as a teacher and as a student. We feel that we need to be more connected with what our students are thinking, what they are, what kind of views they have. So I think that like you have created this seminar, it's kind of a platform where these kind of platforms are the places where the youngsters, they can share their perspective without any hesitation, and they can learn about openly about the differences in the ideas of each other. I
That's
hope I
great.
have addressed your point.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any
Thank
other comment or
Any other question?
Madam, I have a question, Dr. Numan.
yes, please. Ji Nauman, sir.
Mm, Madam, what are the indicators or behavioral changes that may suggest that an individual is progressing towards online radicalization?
Uh, it's very tricky question, Noman, because it's as I mentioned about the risk factors. in a person that is moving into a pathway of the radicalization. Normally, I think at the individual level, if you look at the relationships dynamics at the families, the case studies that we have seen and the evidence that we have seen from those who have mentioned to become radicalist or they have joined those organizations, it seems that they have broken family bondages altogether. There must one might want to look at the nature of the relationships that these individuals have, like how what kind of relationships they have with their own intact family members, or other friends and the support network that they have. Sometimes some of the behaviors related to isolation, related to loneliness, related to certain kind of behavior that shows anger or frustration, so or emotional manipulations is also seen. At times you would notice moral disengagement in them as well, like I have shared with you some of the case studies. Another thing could be the academic decline in them, or sometimes if people are focusing on certain ideologies, then you would see them distracting towards their own routine work. So I think there are different, as I've also shared the pyramid diagram in my slides, that certain factors within the lifestyle of that individual, the daily routines, if they are changing, and similarly the interaction with the others, their behavior at the workplace, or their behavior at the, if they are students, then their the activities, that whether they're completing them or not. There's a different kind of things that can be like assessed with them. At our university, we have peer mentorship program as well. Every faculty member has a number of students they are connected with, so they hold regular meetings with them where they have discussion about different ideas and concepts. So I mean, these are all different varying factors, but it's really not a shrewd single thing that I can say that, okay, this is going to be the red flag. But I believe that any withdrawn kind of a behavior that seems to be out of the usual, it needs something for you to be cautious about.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sajda Nas, for that insight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank
move
you.
forward towards our next speaker, Dr. Asma Arif. Dr. Asma Arif is an accomplished academic HEC approved PhD supervisor and assistant professor of Department of Economics, University of WA, with over 2 decades of teaching and research experience. Her expertise span international trade, energy economics, environmental sustainability, and institutional economics, with extensive publications as well. She has led internationally funded research projects and organized major international conferences under the China Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC), fostering global academic collaboration. We are honored to invite Dr. Asma Arif to share her valuable insights as a distinguished speaker in today's seminar. Welcome, madam.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Rizwan, Dean Social Sciences. He is not here. And Dr. Noman, Chairperson Psychology, and Dr. Samir for providing me the chance to speak at this forum. Although this is not my subject, but no one can experience digital radicalization more than me. Why? Because I'm also working as a focal person, Women Development Department. So, first of all, I appreciate basically this is a awareness session. For example, previously in 1 or 2 decades before, we have just experience of digital extremism for the whenever we go abroad for higher studies. All of us have heard from our parents and our friends and our relatives that whenever we go abroad, there is some racism. we have experienced racism or propaganda against Islam. We all are aware of it. Now we are one step higher. When I took the charge of the focal person women development department, that was a big challenge for me. And no one was everyone refused. And even if the people were ready to accept this charge, they were thinking about how they would face the public, because that is the program of the Punjab government. And if everyone, and nowadays we are well aware that what is happening in our country, one party is blaming another party, and all parties are blaming each other. And what we are doing, who are the employees and who are the students of the University of Wa, when some tasks are assigned to us, but what is our feeling? We have the we are facing difficulty for finalizing our task. That is basically the hurdle. And in this situation, I don't say that we should favor any party or not, or any propaganda. We should be a part of any propaganda. No. What is our responsibility? We should know what we are doing, what would be the benefits to our institution, what would be the benefits to our youth, and what would be the overall benefits. We should not be a part of any particular party, but we should know that we are basically the employees of any institution. And also we must know that whatever we are doing, that is positive and overall in the favor of the institution. That is our responsibility. So now, basically, I realize, because this is not my subject. My subject is economics. But uh, when Dr. Samina asked me that you have to speak on this topic, first I said I should refuse, because I said, how should I speak on this topic? Because we can speak only on the surface, but as we are not the AI scientist, so it would be difficult for us. But with the passage of time, when I worked on all this, I conclude only this is a awareness session, and I think we should speak on this issue as well, because there are different kinds of propagandas. So सबसे पहले, I think everyone knows that. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So everyone knew that what is digital extremism. Basically, that is the excessive use of digital technologies and online platforms for different kinds of propagandas. It may be against any specific racism. Whenever you go to America, there is a race of the white and black. And then, when the students go outside for the higher studies, we feel the students who take veil or abaya, or they cover their head, and the males with the beard, they feel they are very much shy, because they said maybe we feel face difficulty because we are Muslims. So, and then political parties, if we say we are from the one party, belong to one party, other will say, oh, they will maybe someone may hate us. And I especially am thankful, when I was focal person of women development department, no one was against me. Everyone has taken me as an employee of University of Wa. Whenever my session was on here, I was very much conscious what would be the comments, because my session was always live. It was live session, so it was a great challenge for me, and still it is a challenge for me. So I appreciate Dr. Samina. I appreciate departments of psychology. That is the much need of the time, that being a national of Pakistan, we must be neutral. And first of all, we should correct ourselves. And if everyone correct themselves, I am very much sure that all country will go in the one and positive direction. So basically, digital extremism not only can use for the propaganda, but also maybe use for the trade of different currencies like cryptocurrency, because the transfer of these currencies is cannot be traceable. Even you cannot identify who is the behind this exchange. So growth of online radicalization, uh, nowadays extremist content, you can find extremist content in excess quantity. um, for example, extremist content in the for example, when there was a Afghan time is what? Okay, this ये तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. So okay, I will just wrap the issue because I am a part of the awareness session, and thankful psychology department has this is not organized by the women development department. This is organized by the psychology department, and that is very much neutral. So students, yeah, and faculty members, initially, next slide, please. What is the evolution of the digital extremism? In the past 2 or 3 or 4 decades before, only we were available with some websites, and these websites were static. And it was very easy to identify and believe that for them. But with the passage of time, now we have X, now we have LinkedIn, now we have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. TikTok is most used by our young generation. And so it is very difficult for us because everyone is repeating the same reel again and again, and automatically the propaganda is getting the escalation in the society that really exists. Next slide, please. Emerging future challenges. First, I was thinking to place one of my pictures here, and I was going to ask you to get real. Nowadays it is very much difficult to identify the activities. Very easily we can reframe others. For example, recently Iran and Islam war. Let's example. All of you have experience that there were all the time the society is busy in identifying this fear, this fear. And it was very much difficult to identify. Next, please. Cryptocurrency currency and autonomous bots. With the help of the autonomous bots and artificial intelligence, it is very much easy to exchange of the currencies and especially model currencies, where trade is illegal, especially in the case of the cryptocurrency. And basically, in this case, these currencies may be used to finance illegal activities. Social challenges in terms of digital experience, youth radicalization. The most vulnerable part of the society is youth. But again and again, the same range certainly is both the content and also this, for example, हम tag content आ जाता है हमारे लेबल या किसी फ्रेंड को ही लगा दिया या किसी खाना जानती को लगा दी उससे हमारे लिए लगा दी तो ये वो चीजें हैं जो कि क्रिएट और इस तरह की चीजें सोसाइटी से इंट्रोड्यूस करते हैं और जो बड़ी होती है लोगों से और जो जेन्युइन ये आप इनको चाहे ओल्ड एज के लोग इस्तेमाल करें या यूज करें दैट इज न्यू यूजर्स तो न्यू यूजर्स को समझाना कि ये बात ऐसी नहीं है ये किसी ने ऐसी प्रोफेशन रखी है और फॉर एग्जाम्पल I do not like my chairperson या chairperson के साथ propaganda बनाना है लेकिन ऐसी करती वो circulate करना शुरू हो जाए और फिर पूरी दुनिया के सारा की तरह इस लोगों के लिए so that is also being used for the to deceive others. It is very easy कि एक मैसेज बनाए और पूरी दुनिया में सर्कुलेट कर दिया और without उसको हम खुद से देखें कि क्या डॉक्टर वाकई एक बड़ी लड़की Okay, Allah Hafiz.
Thank you so much, Dr. Asma. Now, Moving on towards our next speaker. Our next speaker, Dr. Jan Alam, is an accomplished academic and assistant professor at the University of Wa, Department of Education. His research focuses on early childhood education, higher education, minority and transgender education, and cultural diversity, with 29 research publications to his credit. We are delighted to welcome Dr. Jan Alam as a distinguished speaker and look forward to benefiting from his valuable insights and expertise. Welcome, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much to the organizing committee for offering me the opportunity to present the topic here, that is strategic countermeasure for a digital age. Please, the major contents of my presentation that are the 4 areas. Section first, that is understanding today's digital threats. The second, that is cybersecurity threats, facts and protections. The third, that is counter narratives and information defense. The fourth, that is building digital resilience and community action. सर ये तो अब ठीक है अच्छा ठीक है ओके okay sorry for that I spoke and no one listened to me okay so the first section that was about understanding today's digital threats, and let me explain that why this topic is important. As all of you using a mobile phone, digital tools in our day-to-day life. So for the very purpose, there are some needs of protections, protecting your accounts, protecting yourself. So for that very purpose, the topic is very important. So be attentive towards this. So the first one, that is when we are totally depending on digital equipments, digital dependence, and if you look at our daily routine life, so our bank accounts, our health records, social media and remote work platforms, etc., online classes, etc., all these things are related to digital equipments, digital tools, etc. So we cannot ignore these things in our day-to-day life. The second, that is global exposure, and about 5.4 billion people are online in 2024. And there are the sources. If you want to go into brief or into the detail, so you can find the information on the source. And the second thing, soaring cyber crime. Cyber crime is projected to cost $9.5 trillion worldwide in 2024. The purpose of this presentation is to protect you and aware you about the cyber crime and about such type of activities. I cannot go into full details as before I was taking start of my presentation. So the boss, she said that I should not take more than 5 minutes. So I'm in a bit hurry because of that. I cannot explain everything with full details. So you can look at that. Cyber security in simple terms. What is cyber security? For example, to keep or protect your accounts, your identity, your assets that are available online, and that is called cyber security. And counter narratives in the digital age, for example, in 2025, what are narratives? And narratives are stories, are messages shaping beliefs and attitudes. And harmful narratives include hate speech, extremist contents, and health misinformation that spread quickly across digital platforms. How counter narratives work, for example, if you go against that and to whatever you are facing on the social media, and there are the remedies for that on the social media. These are the counter narratives. Then digital resilience, a core concept. What is digital resilience? I can just explain about that. For example, if you lose something, you have a loss. Sometimes you can receive a call from an unknown number, and they can ask you about the information of your bank account. They can say that they can change their password, etc. So these are such type of incident may happen in our daily life to us. Yes, I myself, I have received so many times different calls. A person who contacted me and said that I am Captain Khalid and I'm contacting you, and I want to get some information about your account. So I came to know about the person. I told him that I am the brigadier. So if you want to meet me, you come to my office and there we can discuss about that. So there are some scammers in our day-to-day life. So the digital resilience, for example, if you are facing such type of incident, and after that incident you can console yourself and can say that yes, these things can happen and these are related to your day-to-day life, and you can face these things and you can handle with these are the digital resilience. Then the second section, that is cybersecurity threats, facts and protections. There are the different cybersecurity. For example, we can get different sort of emails. There are the phishing and the ransomwares. The phishing emails, for example, is I am the editor of the journal, so sometimes I get email from the phishing email. There are the names of some British or the English names are there, and they are saying that we are trying to submit a paper. But when you click on that, they automatically hack the password of your account and then they manage your account. So these are the phishing emails. And the other one, the ransomware, that is another thing. That is just like a rascal. They hack your account and then they threat you that you should pay to them to safely recover your account. If you are not paying them, then they are damaging your account, your assets that are available online. There are the global cybercrime by the number in 2020. That is the estimated the trillion cost. The cost that is the cybercrime that happened in different years. So in 2020, there are 6 trillion US dollar cost happened due to the cyber crime. In 2024, that was 9.5 trillion. But in 2028, it is expected to be 13.28 trillion. Everyday cyber hygiene for individuals. So, for example, step-by-step protection habits. One can follow different instructions for protecting their accounts, and ongoing vigilance and safety practices that can happen and can protect your account. Cyber security for families, family digital safety rules. For example, you can have different or certain rules in your family to protect your accounts. For example, you cannot hand over your mobile to the kids or those who are not aware about the digital, about the user having no experience about using digital equipment. So, okay, ma'am. There are some the community resource awareness campaign, etc. Through that you can aware the people and can protect their accounts. You can aware them about these such type of activities or problems. Section third, that is counter narratives and information defense. The misinformation problem, for example, the misinformation problem, that is defining false information threats. There is the statistics mentioned that the information that are doubtful, that are 40%, the 20% that are the trusted information that are shared on social media, and the rest that is the distrust information. They're recognizing harmful narratives. For example, what are the harmful narratives? Harmful versus healthy narratives. Harmful narratives use us versus them. blame one group for every problem, or claim exclusive truth, rely on rumors. For example, whatever we are facing on social media, that there are certain type of rumors are blaming a person or blaming a particular body, etc., or organizations. So these are the recognizing harmful narratives. These things are happening on social media or on online platforms. These are the effective counter narratives. For example, that if for example you are taking measure against that first of all, what is your mission, then what is the method you have to follow to counter measure your statement, and then the phenomenon, what is the phenomena to protect yourself from a particular phenomenon. Facts checking and source verification. So there are the 6 steps of verification process. For example, pause before sharing. If you are sharing something with others, for example, sometimes you get a message or email and they are sharing a link and they ask you to click on that. If you are clicking, so they are hacking your account. So if you are clicking before that, you should follow these 6 steps. The last one, that is the fourth one, that is section 4, building digital resilience and community action. That is the pyramid for the element of digital resilience. The first one, count outcomes of resilient behaviors, and the second one, that is the pyramid of resilience capabilities. Practical digital resilience plans, for example, these are the 4 stages for the digital resilience. Identify critical assets. First of all, you should identify what are your critical assets, then set basic protections to those critical assets. And the third, that is documents and train, getting training about that how to protect them. And sorry, the third, that is plan for incidents, that you should prepare yourself for the incident, that something can happen to you. And if something happens to you, then what to do, how to protect your account. And the last one, that is document and training. Community brainstorming workshops on digital risks and resilience, that is activity objectives, impact, focus, group task and sharing and outcomes. Key message and call to action, connected pillars of digital resilience, for example, cybersecurity habits, counter narratives, and digital resilience form an interdependent loop where small, consistent actions reinforce safer behavior, stronger communities, and more trustworthy information ecosystems. Thank you. I myself didn't understand whatever I say, but just because of time. Okay. Because of the time. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is Ms. Shumaila Noreen. Ms. Shumaila Noreen is a distinguished academic and lecturer in Department of English at the University of VA with nearly 2 decades of teaching experience. Her research interests include postmodern critical theories and 20th century English poetry. We are delighted to welcome Ms. Shumaila Noreen as a distinguished speaker and look forward for her valuable insights. Welcome, ma'am. Am I audible? Am I audible now? All right. Well, the topic that I am given for today is technology as a catalyst, AI, algorithms, and the spread of extremist narrative. Before I start working and discussing what it actually is, I have a question for my audience. When we open our cell phones, do we actually decide what are we to see? Or is it algorithm or technology that decides what we are supposed to see? Algorithms, right? So this means that how technology actually is something that decides what are we supposed to see online.
Now, since I'm from English literature and my field is not specifically related to radicalization or technology, so I'm going to talk about technology in the sense of film studies, which actually is digital humanities. So, I would like to say that how AI, algorithms, surveillance, and extremist discourse is disseminated through film studies. Well, I would like to start off with this idea that in this postmodern society, all of us are taken as digital natives. And why are we digital natives? Because we are always having cell phones by our side. We open up with cell phones by the side of our bed, right? We keep on navigating through platforms. We communicate through social media such as YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and so much more. So that means that how in modern world we are not humans anymore, rather we are cyborgs. What is cyborg? Cyborg basically is a theory given by Donna Haraway, and according to her, um, a, a cyborg basically is a hybrid of machine and organism. Basically, Haraway proposed this idea in her book Cyborg Manifesto that was published in 1985. At that time, it was more futuristic. But now that we are living in this world, we can see that all of us are cyborgs. Why? Because if you can just think for a moment, one of our hands is always digital. It is always technology oriented. Either we pick up our phones in one of our hands or we have this laptop with us. So this means that the modern human being actually is a cyborg and their identities and their memories are always digitally connected to the algorithm. So the last bullet is that we are not using technology, we are technology. This means that how in this modern world, what is happening that we keep on getting more and more in touch with technology because we keep on searching, we keep on scrolling, we keep on liking, we keep on making comments, we keep on sharing. So all of this means that how we are more digitally connected and less socially connected, right? Well, the next idea is related to the idea of panopticon. Basically, panopticon is related to Michel Foucault's idea of panopticon. Traditionally, panopticon basically is a prison system where prisoners are always under surveillance. They are always being watched and controlled. Now, I am trying to tell you that how this panopticon in today's world is algorithm. Our cell phones and the digital world is a form of modern algorithmic panopticon. And what happens here? We have got three layers. First layer is related to Foucault's panopticon, which is obviously very traditional. That was related to institutional visibility and prison self-regulation. However, in today's world, what is happening? We are actually standing here, which is Zygmunt Bauman's idea of liquid surveillance. What it is? Liquid surveillance is how you are digitally under watch, how you are unaware that you are being seen and you are being watched, but still you are always under somebody's watch. And the last one is algorithmic oppression. Algorithmic oppression is that how you are not marginalized, you are not controlled visibly, but it is our consent. It is that how we are willingly agreeing that we need to be controlled by algorithms, right? See, this is again the same idea that how this algorithmic panopticon is something that predicts, that sorts, and that determines human behavior. Because you might have seen that we all want to be socially seen and we all want to be socially acknowledged by the people around us. So this means that how we are all the victim of this algorithmic panopticon and the liquid surveillance, and ultimately the result is algorithmic oppression, which is the systematic use of data-driven systems to marginalize, manipulate, and radicalize population without their awareness. The next aspect of the same technology is that of linguistic marketplace. By linguistic marketplace, I mean that how language in today's world has become capital. right? Capital traditionally was money, but nowadays it is how you are using your language. So language has become a symbolic capital, right? And what happens that language has got value. The way you speak, the way you interact, the way you influence people is something that has symbolic value. And based on this, you are going to have algorithmic reward logic. Now, what is this reward logic? You might have seen that when you post a status on WhatsApp, you always are concerned how many people have seen that, how many have shared, like they have sent heart react, and how many are going to respond back. So this means that algorithm always want to keep you entangled, and that is why they keep on giving you a reward system. And then what happens? You have a symbolic profit. What is the profit? The more your video is spreading, the more likes you're going to have. And ultimately, what happens that your ideas gain visibility. You become viral. You get more and more followers. So this means that how that profit, which actually in economic terms was a profit in terms of money, becomes symbolic profit because you are having this feeling that you are being watched, you are being heard, and you are validated by the society around you. And last of all, this is what leads to symbolic violence. See, if you are, say for example, going to spread some sort of narrative which is based on extremism, something which is related to negativity, automatically will become symbolic violence when algorithmic power will keep on raising and spreading your voice across different platforms. The next is something which is very important and very relevant to our modern world, which is hyperreality. We are all living in a hyperreal world. What is this hyperreal world? The world that is not real, but we believe it to be real for all of us. The idea was given by Jean Baudrillard in his book Simulacra and Simulation, where he said that simulation or the copy becomes more important than the reality itself. That is why you might have seen that people keep on taking selfies, they post it on social media, and they always want to be appreciated by the people around. If you have got so many filters, right? So filter is something which is related to hyperreal. It is not you actually, which is represented through that filter. So we have AI generated content such as deepfakes, synthetic news, bot driven narratives, and all of this constitutes generative hyperreality. So what happens that we are living in a world of science where there is no original available. And last of all, extremist discourse thrives in hyperreality. For example, fabricated atrocities, AI driven propaganda, and synthetic consensus, which obviously manufacture outrage amongst the common public. Sorry. Okay. Many of the presenters here have talked about echo chambers, so I'm not going to talk about echo chamber anymore, but rabbit hole is something important. What rabbit hole actually is, that how when you are opening up your social media and you are looking into any of the video for some time, and when you scroll it, what happens that algorithm determines that the video was of interest for you and you spend some watch time there, so it keeps on showing you the similar content. The deeper and deeper you are trapped into that whole narrative. So what happens that when you talk about the architecture of radicalization, first of all, you are given an exposure. For example, a simple video that might not be very extremist and radicalized apparently, but at least you have got some exposure. You will keep on watching similar videos and you will get a reinforcement, which means similar ideas will keep on they will keep on being injected into your mind. So it would be a form of reinforcement. Next, you would be having group integration, which means you would be able to see similar people on social media. Like you might have seen you might have heard the idea that great minds think alike. So similarly, when extremist people are together, they always have a networking, right? And it is always done through social media. And last of all, it leads to a violent action. Now, AI has become a language weapon because, first of all, previously we used to have industrial scale propaganda, which means that how human labor was required at that time in order to spread propaganda. But now the same is being done by by AI and through algorithms. And then what happens? It is used for behavioral profiling for recruitment. It is always easy to target somebody online using algorithms, right? And last of all is related to rhetorical amplification, which means that how a simple idea, a simple video is always taken more, you can say, dominating through rhetoric. And what happens that different groups are dehumanized, different conspiracy theories are framed, and this is where AI powered social media becomes more and more interesting. Now, you are unable to see the slides here, but I can just explain that how, since I'm from English literature, and since I am from, let me just, like, where was I? इसको जरा open करिएगा please. Where was I? I would still like to discuss like a few of the movies which I have taken as case studies, and it is related to, first of all, coded bias, where we see that how social media or AI algorithm is able to basically identify white skinned individuals, but it cannot identify black skin. So this means that the famous myth that we all have that AI is neutral or algorithms are like they're not biased. So it means that how algorithms and AI is biased. When you talk about religion, when you talk about something specific, it generally says no to you. It does not make any specific comment on that, right? Then we have another movie which is Profile. Profile also talks about the same idea that how online digital recruitment is related to emotional entrapment. You start off with talking about how recruitment is done by these militant groups, but by the end the characters are emotionally trapped. They become a part of the same group, right? And when we talk about what can be done, I would like to call this as post-digital cognitive stylistics, because I'm from literature, so I would see that how algorithms should not be taken as a mere tool of technology. Rather, algorithms should be taken as socio-technical actors, because they have got narrative agency. And through that narrative agency, they actually play with your minds. And all the films that I have just quoted here can serve as counter hegemonic cinematic discourse, because they actually reflect on what is being done by movies. And finally, what can we do is we need to go for algorithmic justice, which means that how, first of all, we need to have co-regulatory approaches. We need to go for algorithmic justice platforms, as in one of the movies that I quoted here was having this movement that AI systems need to be accountable for whatever they are doing. We also need to create a digital literacy amongst our users, and they need to understand that how algorithmic oppression is being done and how we are all the victim of liquid surveillance. And last of all, since humans are the biggest stakeholders in this whole process, so it like AI should not decide the fate of what we are supposed to see. Rather, we need to take control, and we should understand what, and we need to decide what we should see, think, believe, and trust. Thank you so much. If you have any questions. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shamaya Noreen, for sharing your
Thank you so
expertise
much.
with us. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Maz Ahmed. Mr. Maz Ahmed is a dedicated academic and lecturer in Department of Psychology at the University of VA, specializing in clinical psychology since 2017. We are pleased to welcome Mr. Maz Ahmed as a distinguished speaker and look forward to his valuable insights. Please welcome, sir.
Thank you, everyone. I'll not be taking so long. Let me begin. the psychological and social drivers of digital radicalization. Most of you have already talked about that how social media is working, especially the AI-driven search engines and the optimization, as Dr. Professor Azad has discussed about it, and Madam Shumaila also talked about the some of the phenomena which are actually happening in the social media search engines. My focus will be the how the psychological aspects of that is related to the making people vulnerable of the radicalization. So I'll be focusing on the understanding of how ordinary minds are drawn towards extremist beliefs and how psychology can help prevent it. So what happens inside an ordinary human mind before extremist behaviors are appears? So the overall focus is that uh, overall concept is that how that what is going on in a single mind that before when we approach to the psychological phenomena and that we approach to the social media and then we keep on searching on a similar content and then it keeps appearing and that makes us vulnerable. Usually we think that only typical some specific vulnerable individuals who are not that much educated are vulnerable to the radicalization. However, it's not that. Education cannot be the safety or prevention of the radicalization. As we have also experienced, the first suicide bomber in Pakistan was a very well educated individual. So what happens is that radicalization is actually a process. It includes the digital exposure, unmet psychological needs, sense of belonging, identity adoption, and then we go to the extremist wars. So the digital environment is actually engaging algorithm. It is designed to keeps you engaging and it keeps on engaging more and more. So if you have seen one video which is relevant to you or related to your click, it makes you sense for your as per your needs, and then similar searches keeps popping. So that relate to fear, anger, and outrage is something which we experience, and all those individuals who wants you to makes you they want you to experience radicalization. They focus on your emotions, which are fear, anger, and outrage. So the first phenomena which makes you vulnerable is that if you don't feel belonging to any society or any identity, and the other one is the respect you are looking for, the identity, the purpose, and the certainty. So if an individual who is not experiencing these phenomena and they have need for all these needs, psychological needs, and they are not met, so that person can be vulnerable, whether it is educated or not educated. So the how they put is the person feels ignored, isolated, or disconnected. Such person an online community says you matter, you belong, and then a psychological need is met before any ideology is discussed. So we don't know the ideology of the person, but we just feel that we are belonging, we belong to that person because that person is giving us an unconditional acceptance. And emotional investment is in the group is deepened. After that, their group beliefs are gradually adopted. Since we are attached so much emotionally, psychologically, now those beliefs, those ideology is adopted. Certainty is a confusing word. So what they use is certainty in a confusing world, or a clear line between us and them, identity before ideology, simple answers to complex problems, belonging that feels unconditional. So all these are psychological factors which contribute or make us more vulnerable to become radicalized. So thousands of connections. We all know that Madam has also discussed and Sir has also discussed that why digital networks, constant contact and endless feeds, but often very few relationships that are genuinely meaningful. When people experience this kind of life, they are more vulnerable of us to experience a substitute of family, which is where real connections are thin, online communities step in. So if you don't have real connections in your real life, so there are chances that some virtual connections will be built and you don't know the ideology of their connections. So let me just make it down on steps that clicks one video, algorithm recommends similar content, more of the same viewpoints appear, opposing views quietly disappear. And then echo chambers form, as Madam Shumaila has also discussed about echo chambers, and belief hardens and polarize. Since we keep listening to the same content again and again, so they harder. So emotion spreads faster than facts. Anger, fear, and moral outrage move people to share instantly. So if somebody is aggressive or experiencing fear or is experiencing any anger, will tend to act faster than the person who has been convinced with the best of facts. So they use their emotions to fact or act as quick as possible without thinking or processing all the phenomena. Okay. So there is a myth that only uneducated, unintelligent, or troubled people become radicalized, which is not true. Even those who are well educated can also become radicalized if they have similar limitations in their psychological aspects of life. So journal out online audience and emotionally engaged viewers and active community members and identity focused with the groups and radicalization. This is the narrow down of the process that how you begin with the small talk and then you become part of that group and then you adopt those ideologies again. This is the summary of the half of my presentation that says that if they violate these are risk factors: isolation and those online media so platforms provide you the belonging sense of belongingness. Identity crisis, they give you a healthy identity of any domain, and they are echo chambers. So to avoid echo chambers you have to be critical thinking enough, and unregulated anger is emotional regulation, so you have to avoid with the emotional regulation. And similarly, misinformation is can be dealt with the digital literacy. So building psychological resilience, healthy identity is the first step. Digital literacy, critical thinking, and human connection, these all contribute quite well if you want to avoid your vulnerability. If you have healthy identity, digital literacy, and critical thinking abilities, and you have real life human connections, there are less chances that you will be experiencing social from social media, those groups which can make you trap for the radicalization. So these are take keyways. Let's just sink in for a minute. Radicalization is gradual psychological process, not a switch that flips to bad people only. Belonging and identity are recruited before ideology ever is. So, at the digital platform, don't aim radicalize, but engagement-driven design amplify fear and outrage. Education is not immunity. Unmet psychological needs make anyone vulnerable, and the same needs that create risk, belonging, identity, connection are also the strongest protection. So this is the last slide for my presentation. Let's let that sink in. Every person who finds belonging in a healthy community is one less person searching for belonging in an unhealthy one. If that makes sense.
We are grateful to Mr. Maz Ahmed for sharing his expertise with us. Now, I would like to invite the president of the University of WA Alumni Association, Mr. Saad Mustafa, and Askamir to share a few words with us about this initiative and the Alumni Association's continued support for such academic endeavors. Please welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Rizwan, Dr. Samina, and the whole organizing committee for giving me an opportunity to be present between such esteemed intellectuals. The discussions today have highlighted that the challenges of online extremism, cyber narratives, and artificial intelligence are not merely technological issues. They're deeply connected with ethics, education, critical thinking, and human responsibility. As an alumni representative, I firmly believe that the universities have a vital role in preparing graduates who are not only professionally competent, but also ethically responsible citizens. And forums like these, uh, they are they are they inspire meaningful dialogue, promote collaboration, and equip us to address the complex challenges for our digital age. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone who contributed to the success of this seminar. I hope this is one of many such initiatives that continue to strengthen academic excellence and the meaningful engagement at the University of WA. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I now invite Dr. Rizwan, Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, to share his concluding remarks with us. Please welcome, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. How many of you heard about progressive muscle relaxation exercise? पता है क्या होती है? उसमें होता ये कि हम स्ट्रेस डालते हैं पहले बॉडी पर और उसके बाद एंड में स्ट्रेस को रिमूव करते हैं, और जिस वक्त स्ट्रेस रिमूव होता है उस वक्त बहुत मज़ा आता है। तो मेरी स्पीच ख़त्म होने के बाद आपको बहुत मज़ा आने लगा है। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ऑल स्पीकर्स, डॉक्टर डगलस, प्रोफेसर आतिफ आज़ाद, डॉक्टर साजिदा एंड डॉक्टर अस्मा, शुमाइला, माज, साद एंड ऑल ऑफ यू जो पूरा टाइम यहाँ बैठकर सुन रहे हैं इन तमाम स्पीचेस को, क्योंकि सबसे बड़ा इम्तहान तो आप ही का था। और मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंटली मैं थैंक यू कहूँगा डॉक्टर समीना राशिद को, जो 15 दिन से इस सारे प्रोग्राम को ऑर्गेनाइज करने के लिए दिन रात लगी होती थी कि ये किसी तरह से सक्सेसफुल हो, और सारा ईमेल्स करना, कोऑर्डिनेशन करना, इट्स नॉट इजी टास्क। और सिमिलरली डॉक्टर नोमान आफ्ताब, आपका भी बहुत शुक्रिया कि आपने ये सब कुछ प्लान करने में पूरी तरह से सपोर्ट किया पूरे सिस्टम को। रेडिकलाइजेशन ओवरनाइट नहीं हो जाती, कहीं ना कहीं किसी ना किसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में भी ऑल आर रेडिकल, और रेडिकल लोग मॉरली करप्ट होते भी नहीं हैं, क्योंकि रेडिकलाइजेशन इज अ रिजिड प्रोसेस जिसमें आपका थॉट प्रोसेस होता ही इसी डिबेट पे है, व्हाट इज राइट व्हाट इज रॉन्ग। और राइट रॉन्ग की डिबेट में आपके थॉट प्रोसेस आपको एक्शन लेने की तरफ प्रेशराइज करते हैं कि टेक सम एक्शन एंड करेक्शन करो सोसाइटी के डायनामिक्स में जो खराबी हो रही है। वो आपको हीरो बनाने की तरफ लेकर जाते हैं। एरी क्रोगलांस्की के मॉडल के मुताबिक रेडिकल माइंडसेट के लिए 3 चीज़ों की ज़रूरत होती है। नीड फॉर सिग्निफिकेंस, क्योंकि मेरी लाइफ में कोई ऐसी चीज़ नहीं हो पा रही जिससे मैं कहीं स्टैंड स्टैंड कर सकूं कि मैं कोई सिग्निफिकेंट इंसान हूं। तो फिर मैं एजेंडा उठा लेता हूं कि लेट्स चेंज द सोसाइटी, लेट्स चेंज एनीथिंग, फेमिनिज्म के हवाले से, एनिमल राइट्स के हवाले से, ह्यूमन राइट्स के हवाले से, और सबसे खतरनाक जिहादिस आइडियोलॉजी लेकर। और वो अपनी आइडियोलॉजी में गलत भी नहीं होते, इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट, क्योंकि अपनी आइडियोलॉजी में गलत नहीं होते। टेक्निकली अगर एजुकेशन अप्लाई की जाए तो वो गलत होते हैं, लेकिन वो जो सोचते हैं वो गलत नहीं होता, क्योंकि तभी तो वो इस वायलेंट एक्शन पर जाते हैं। तभी तो एक रेडिकल समझता है कि वो सुसाइडल अटैक करे, तो सुसाइडल अटैक करने के बाद कहाँ आंखें खुलेंगी उसकी? जन्नत में क्या होंगी चारों तरफ। और अगर उसे पता चले कि उसे बम ब्लास्ट करने के बाद हुरें नहीं मिलने लगी तो क्या वो करेगा? तो मेन आइडिया एग्जैक्टली ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन है, क्योंकि जिंदगी में यहाँ तो उसे कोई नॉर्मल भी नहीं मिल रही, और ही इज लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड कितनी हुरें? 4 5 आई डोंट नो वॉट एवर। अब आज का हमारा मेन टाइटल था ऑनलाइन रेडिकलाइजेशन। ऑनलाइन रेडिकल होने में जो सबसे बड़ा रिस्क है वो आइसोलेशन है, क्योंकि वेन एवर यू आर यूजिंग ऑनलाइन मैकेनिज्म, इंटरनेट चाहे मोबाइल पर है, चाहे लैपटॉप पर है, चाहे कंप्यूटर पे, तो आपकी टोटल आंखें उसी जगह फोकस्ड होती हैं, आपके टोटल थॉट उसी जगह फोकस्ड होते हैं। और अगर अभी आपके थॉट्स अपने मोबाइल में है तो आपको मेरी आवाज भी नहीं आ रही है, और डॉक्टर हसन उसका बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट एविडेंस है। आइसोलेशन में जाना सबसे बड़ी वल्नरेबिलिटी होती है किसी भी क्रिमिनल एक्टिविटी में इन्वॉल्व होने के लिए। और ऑनलाइन मैकेनिज्म आपके तमाम सेंसेस को बहुत स्ट्रांगली इंगेज करता है। 5 सेंसेस हैं आपके, देख रहे हैं, सुन रहे हैं, महसूस कर रहे हैं, टेस्ट कर रहे हैं, स्मेल कर रहे हैं। ऑनलाइन मैकेनिज्म में सारी अट्रैक्शन एक साथ कनेक्ट की जाती है। आपने सुना होगा ब्लू वेल एक गेम था, ब्लू वेल गेम के हवाले से एक बहुत मैकेनिज्म इंगेज हुआ कि ब्लू वेल के जो बच्चे फॉलो कर रहे हैं वो सुसाइड भी कर रहे थे। तो आपने देखा कि वो क्यों सुसाइड कर रहा था? क्योंकि ऑनलाइन एंगेजमेंट आपके माइंड को अपने कंट्रोल में लाने की कैपेसिटी रखती है। और जो रेडिकल माइंडसेट हैं, जो रेडिकल आउटलेट्स हैं, जो रेडिकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैं, उनमें बहुत ज़्यादा क्रिमिनल माइंडसेट लोग भी होते हैं। वो आपको इंगेज करते हैं, क्योंकि हर एक का मकसद जिहाद तो नहीं है। ये जितने आप सारे एक्टिविटीज देख रहे हैं, नॉट एवरीथिंग इज जिहाद। नाम भले वही हो रहा हो, ठीक है, नाम भले वो यूटिलाइज हो रहा है, लेकिन उनका मेन आइडिया वो नहीं है। वो क्रिमिनल माइंडसेट के साथ है। क्रिमिनल माइंडसेट के साथ लोग आपको ऑनलाइन एंगेज करते हैं। और फीमेल रेडिकलाइजेशन के एंगेज होने का सबसे आसान तरीका क्या है कि मोहब्बत के जाल में फंसाते हैं, आपसे कुछ तस्वीर मंगाते हैं, तस्वीर मंगाने के बाद आपको उसी की बेस पे ब्लैकमेल करते हैं। कितनी सारी खवातीन इस बेस के ऊपर रेडिकल आइडियाज को अडॉप्ट करने पे मजबूर हुई होंगी। आप इस बात का अंदाजा नहीं लगा सकते, क्योंकि हमारे पास ये सारी इंफॉर्मेशन तो नहीं आती है। ऑनलाइन जब आप मौजूद हैं तो इस तरह की एक्टिविटीज होने की वल्नरेबिलिटी बहुत ज्यादा है, क्योंकि आप आइसोलेशन में आपको जो आइडिया दिया जाए, आप अगर उस अटैचमेंट के साथ जाते हैं तो बाय करने की कैपेसिटी बहुत ज्यादा वर्क करती है। तो मैं बात कर रहा था नीड फॉर सिग्निफिकेंस की। आपको हीरो बनने का शौक आता है, फिर हीरो बनने के शौक के साथ नैरेटिव, आपको सोशल मीडिया पे तो हर तरह का नैरेटिव है। जैसे आप सोच रहे हैं, आपको लगता है कि मुझे इस मुल्क को चेंज करना है, तो आपके थॉट, आपके थोड़े से कंटेंट की सर्च करने के बाद आपका एल्गो वहीं आ जाएगा, और आपकी तमाम वीडियोस जो भी सोशल मीडिया पे आ रही हैं मोर लाइक उसी तरह के कंटेंट को टारगेट करेंगी, और कोई एक आपको अच्छी लग जाएगी। एंड देन वेरी लाइकली कि अब आप नेटवर्क से भी कनेक्ट होने की कैपेसिटी बिल्टअप कर रहे हैं। तो नीड आई, नैरेटिव आया, नेटवर्क मिल गया, तो बस आप फिर उस साइट पर चले गए, और लोग इसी बेस के ऊपर ज्वाइन करते हैं, और अस वर्सेस देम की आइडियोलॉजी प्रोजेक्ट की जाती है। जैसे हम जिस भी आइडियाज़ को सुनेंगे तो हमें यही बताया जाता है कि हम मुसलमानों को सप्रेस किया जा रहा है, हमारे खिलाफ कंपेन चल रही है, हमारे खिलाफ बहुत एंटी चीज़ें चल रही हैं। सिमिलरली दूसरी साइड पर भी यही बताया जाता है कि मुसलमान आपके दुश्मन है, मुसलमान आपको ख़त्म करना चाहते हैं, अगर मुसलमानों को आप कुछ नहीं करेंगे तो मुसलमान आपके साथ खतरनाक चीज़ें कर सकते हैं। तो अस वर्सेस देम वाली आइडियोलॉजी डिसेमिनेट करती है, जो लोगों के माइंडसेट को कंट्रोल करके आपसे किसी भी किस्म की नेगेटिव एक्टिविटी करवा सकती है। बीवेयर, सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी चीज क्या है कि आपकी आंखें खुली होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि हो सकता है अभी आप जितने लोग मेरे पास बैठे हैं, आप में से कोई भी ना रेडिकल है, ना रेडिकल होने की टेंडेंसी रखता है, तभी आप इधर बैठे हुए हैं, वरना आप थोड़ी देर में यहाँ से उठ के चले जाते हैं। क्योंकि जो रेडिकल होता है वो इन सारी बातों को सुन के नाउजुबिल्लाह के होता है, नाउजुबिल्लाह कहने के बाद आपको छोड़ के चला जाता है, क्योंकि उसका आपके साथ बैठना भी उसके लिए गुनाह का काम है, तो वहां से उठ के चला जाएगा। अब आपको अवेयरनेस रखने का फायदा क्या है, क्योंकि लोग तो आपके इर्द गिर्द मौजूद ही है ना। आपकी इस अवेयरनेस से आप शायद कल किसी को बेनिफिट दे सकते हो। कल कोई वल्नरेबल आपकी आंखों के सामने आता है तो आप उसे समझा सकते हो। पाकिस्तान में वायलेंट एक्सट्रीमिज्म को, टेररिज्म को कंडेम करने के लिए एक पाकिस्तानी नैरेटिव मौजूद है जिसे कहते हैं पैगाम पाकिस्तान। उसकी अवेयरनेस हासिल करें, वो आपको रिलीजियस कॉन्टेक्स्ट के अंदर पूरी अवेयरनेस देगा कि ये जितनी भी एक्टिविटीज रिलीजन के नाम पे की जा रही होती हैं वो सही नहीं है। उसकी ओरिएंटेशन रखने का आपको ये फायदा होगा कि कल कोई शख्स आपकी आंखों के सामने ऐसा आता है, कोई दोस्त, कोई रिश्तेदार जिस तरह की बातें करता हो, तो मुमकिनात में से कि आपकी थोड़ी सी गाइडेंस उसे कुछ सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड कर सके। बहुत शुक्रिया आप सब लोगों के आने का। अगले जो हमारे सेमिनार्स हैं, सेमिनार नंबर 3 वो मेनली डी रेडिकलाइजेशन को फोकस करेगा, जिसका मतलब ये है कि रेडिकलाइजेशन तो हमने बहुत सुन लिया कि लोग रेडिकल होते हैं। अब रेडिकल हो गए तो क्या करें। एक काम है स्टेट करती है, हार्डकोर एक्टिविटी में उनके खिलाफ एक्शन करना पड़ता है, उन्हें मारना पड़ता है, लेकिन आप कितने लोगों को मारोगे, है ना। इस पे तो बहुत सारे नैरेटिव में बोल भी नहीं सकता अभी इधर, ठीक है, कि आप कितने लोगों को मारोगे। मार मार के तो सोल्यूशन नहीं होगा ना। आखिरकार हमें चेंज ही करना पड़ेगा, उन लोगों को स्टॉप करना पड़ेगा कि जो उस वल्नरेबिलिटी की तरफ जा रहे हैं। और इस पे अवेयरनेस कैंपेन मैटर करती हैं, इस पे आपकी ओरिएंटेशन मैटर करती है, और उसके बाद इस पे डिफरेंट मॉड्यूल्स हैं जिसकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग और जिसको डिसेमिनेट करना मैटर करता है। तो इंशाल्लाह अगले 2 सेमिनार हमारे डी रेडिकलाइजेशन को ही फोकस करेंगे। आप सब लोग उसको ज़रूर ज्वाइन कीजिए। एक जो छोटी सी बात कहना चाहूँगा कि ये सब्जेक्ट मैटर इंतहाई सिग्निफिकेंट है। इस वक्त 3 सब्जेक्ट हैं जिसमें करियर की अपॉर्चुनिटीज ओपन है। एक है जेंडर, जेंडर की स्पेशलिस्ट आपके साथ बैठी हुई है डॉक्टर अस्मा। दूसरा है क्लाइमेट, और तीसरा है वायलेंट एक्सट्रीमिज्म। ये तीन वो डोमेन है, अगर आप इसमें जेन्युइन रिसर्च करके जेन्युइन अपनी प्रोफाइल बिल्टअप करना चाहें तो आप यकीन कर लीजिए कि यू आर एवरीवेयर। अभी हम बात कर रहे थे कि एआई तो मौजूद है, पर एआई बहुत चीप हो गई है। ओरिजिनल चीज क्या है जो इस वक्त दुनिया के पास मौजूद नहीं है? वो डेटा है। और डेटा ग्राउंड पर इस वक्त, आप पाकिस्तान में रहते हैं, पाकिस्तानी कल्चर के अंदर आपको डेटा कलेक्ट करने की कैपेसिटी सबसे ज्यादा है, क्योंकि आप इस कल्चर से ओरिएंटेड हैं। तो जो भी वल्नरेबिलिटी फैक्टर हो सकते हैं, जो भी काउंटर करने वाले फैक्टर हो सकते हैं, उस पर रिसर्च करना, उसको एजुकेट करना, उसे डिसमिनेट करना, ये आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी में है। हर प्रोविंस के अंदर सीवी सेंटर बिल्टअप हो चुके हैं, जिनका मेन ऑब्जेक्टिवली ही प्रिवेंशन करना भी है, जिनका मेन ऑब्जेक्टिवली ही माइंडसेट को चेंज करना भी है, जिनका मेन ऑब्जेक्टिवली उससे रिलेटेड रिसर्च करना भी है, उससे रिलेटेड सेमिनार्स अरेंज करना भी है। तो अगर आप अपनी प्रोफाइल को इस डोमेन में बनाने की कोशिश करेंगे तो यकीन कीजिए आपका फ्यूचर लोकली भी ब्राइट हो सकता है, और इसका इंटरनेशनल भी बहुत ज़्यादा स्कोप मौजूद है। बहुत शुक्रिया आप सब लोगों का। इंशाल्लाह नेक्स्ट हमारी मुलाकात दोबारा होगी। आई एम लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड कि 11 को मिस हबीबा की लीडरशिप के अंदर हम दोबारा इधर होंगे, और अगली जो हमारी कम्युनिकेशन होगी वो टोटल डी रेडिकलाइजेशन को फोकस करेगी। अपने इर्द गिर्द लोगों को इसके बारे में अवेयर करें कि ज़रूर ज्वाइन करें, क्योंकि ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग, ये लर्निंग हम सब के लिए बहुत बेनिफिशियल होगी। बहुत शुक्रिया आप लोगों का। एंड नाउ यू कैन फील रिलैक्स।
Thank you so much, sir, for those closing thoughts. As we near the close of today's seminar, it is time to formally recognize everyone whose efforts and presence made this event possible. I now invite Professor Dr. Mohammad Rizwan to distribute certificates. We now begin with our keynote speakers, Dr. Asma Arif, Dr. Jan Alam, Ms. Shumaila Noreen, Mr. Maz Ahmed. I guess he's not here. Okay. Next, certificates for our chief organizer, focal person, and organizer. Professor Dr. Mohammad Rizwan as chief organizer. Okay. Dr. Samina Rashid as a focal person. Dr. Naman Aftab. Now our volunteer Saad Mustafa. And finally, our attendees who joined us in person. Hina Shah Nawaz. ठीक है. Miss Arisha Farooq. Miss Rida Khalid. Miss Momna Fahim. Fatima Shahid Qureshi. Halima Fahim. Maham Batul, Saman Ishfaq. Thank you so much. Thank you all once again for being a part of this global dialogue and have a great day ahead. Allah Hafiz.